Sudan, the findings from a probe into a deadly crackdown spark fresh protests. Tunisia bids farewell to its first democratically elected president. And a Nigerian court grants permission to declare a Shiite group terrorists. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. Also coming up this hour. In business, Chinese experts assist Tunisia to set up a grid-scale solar power plant. And in sports, Ghanaian weightlifters set their focus on the 2020 Olympic Games. We start the hour in Khartoum, where negotiations between Sudan's military council and the opposition continue as both sides try to hammer out a final roadmap for a transitional period in Sudan. This comes after a failed coup attempt last week. CGTN's Yasser Hakim has more.
The meetings in Khartoum are picking up from the latest deal sponsored by the African Union and Ethiopia. However, the peace talks have been overshadowed by a failed coup attempt by officers loyal to former President Omar al-Bashir.
The coup attempt reflects the internal problems within the military council, and this could of course strengthen the position of the opposition in negotiations. But the fear is that these events could be supported by foreign forces that want to destroy the peace process.
The coup attempt brings to the surface fears that there are other parties in Sudan that might disrupt the peace efforts.
Sudan has ethnic and tribal divisions, which means that loyalties are to the tribes and ethnicity. Any foreign interference with conflicting agendas can lead to infighting between these different tribes and violence that could lead to chaos in the country.
The peace deal agreed so far is based on establishing a transitional council made up of representatives of the military council and the opposition. The higher council would form a government to oversee the transitional period, a new constitution and elections.
The peace process is at a pivotal stage. Experts say the political powers should be keen on quickly reaching a long-lasting agreement to avoid the bloodshed that has been seen in neighboring countries such as Libya. Yas Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Meanwhile, prosecutors in Sudan have announced the results of an official probe into a widely condemned crackdown on peaceful protesters in June. Fath al-Rahman Saeed, the head of the investigative committee, says 87 people were killed by bullets when security forces violently cleared a protest camp on June 3rd in the capital, Khartoum. He added that 168 people were wounded. The investigation, however, has sparked fresh anger, with protesters saying the toll was in fact much higher. CGTN's Tuli Shabalala has that update.
An investigation has found that rogue military personnel were responsible for the killing of dozens of Sudanese protesters in Khartoum last month.
It was discovered by the committee that there were two officers, one at the rank of Major General ASA, who had given an order to Brigadier General AAM to move the riot police pertaining to the Rapid Support Forces. Among those, there were no officials who were asked to clear the area of Columbia, and they had no instructions or orders to participate in the plan to clear the area of Columbia. The major was warned by the leader of the operation that he should have nothing to do with these forces. However, he neglected these orders and led a group of armed forces into the sit-in area, ordering the forces to come down from their cars and whip the protesters.
The violent breakup of a protest sit-in by security forces left 87 people dead and 168 others wounded.
It was discovered by the committee that there were two anonymous drunk people in the sit-in square shooting ammunition. There were also 3 anonymous people shooting live ammunition at the protesters from the top of a building in the Al-Bashir medical compound wearing uniform.
The committee's findings put the death toll higher than the health ministry's previous estimates. But opposition medics dispute the numbers. They say 127 people were killed and 400 people wounded. This has reignited public anger.
We rejected the formation of this committee for many reasons and for objective reasons. First, the members of this committee were not clear. Second, the Attorney General's office was about to participate in the massacre on June 3rd, so it was not appropriate for the Attorney General to form an investigative committee.
Demonstrators barricaded roads and set fire to tires. In certain neighborhoods, police attempted to disperse the crowds with tear gas and stun grenades. Unlike in previous demonstrations, this time, Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces were not seen on the streets. Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Let's turn now to news from Nigeria, where the government has been reacting to a video purportedly released by a splinter Boko Haram group, the Islamic State West Africa province. The 3-minute recording shows 6 abducted aid workers from the aid agency Action Against Hunger. The government says it is negotiating to secure their release and others under the group's captivity. CGTN's Deji Badmus has more on that story.
6 aid workers for Paris-based charity Action Against Hunger were abducted last Thursday in an ambush on their convoy close to the Nigerian border with Niger in the northeast Borno state. Now in the video, the only female among the abducted aid workers, who has been identified as Grace Taku, made a passionate appeal in English, calling on the Nigerian government to secure their release. She said any delay could lead to their death.
I begged that Nigerian government should please, I'm begging again, please, do something to see that we are released, because this has occurred before in this organization, Red Cross, where some ladies were caught, Hawa and Zipporah. They also asked to be released, but because Nigeria did not do anything about it, they were killed. I am begging on behalf of all of us here that please, Nigeria should not allow such to happen to us. And it also happened again with Leah and Alice, because Nigeria could not do anything about them. They were not released, they were also killed.
Now, that last line where she mentioned the name Leah is generating some kind of controversy. There is some confusion whether she meant Leah Sharibu, the only Dapchi schoolgirl still being held by the group since last year for refusing to renounce her Christian faith. At the time of the Dapchi abduction, about 110 girls were kidnapped by the group. All were later released with the exception of Leah Sharibu, who is the only Christian among the girls. The government has come under enormous pressure to secure her release and that of the remaining Chibok girls, but so far, nothing has happened. For now, it says it is in negotiation to free all those who are being held by Boko Haram and ISWAP, but there's yet no official word on the Leah mentioned in that video. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, a Nigerian court has granted the government permission to prescribe the Islamic Movement of Nigeria, a local Shiite Muslim group, as a terrorist organization. This according to the country's Solicitor General. The move now offers authorities the chance to clamp down harder on the group. Members of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria have been marching in the capital Abuja, calling for the release of their leader, Ibrahim Zakzaki, who has been detained since 2015, despite a court order to release him. Zakzaki's bail application is set to be decided by a court in the northern state of Kaduna on Monday. Into Tunisia now, where the country's president, Beji Caid Essebsi, was buried in the cemetery of Tunis. Exceptional measures were taken for the state funeral. Men, women and children took to the streets to mourn their president, who safeguarded democracy, consolidated the values of democracy and the peaceful transfer of power. CGTN's Adnan Chouachi has more.
Millions of Tunisians paid tribute to Beji Caid Essebsi, the first elected president in the history of Tunisia. The late head of state exerted high responsibilities in the service of the young Tunisian state from 1963 until 1991. After the 2011 popular uprising, Caid Essebsi headed the transitional government until the parliamentary elections of October 2011.
I came to pay tribute to our beloved president. We will miss a brave man. May he rest in peace.
The president saved Tunisia. He was an experienced and very intelligent politician. He dedicated his life to serving Tunisia and saved the country.
In June 2012, Qaid Essebsi founded his own party, Nida Tunis Movement, which won 86 seats in the House of the People's Representatives in the legislative elections of October 2014. 2 months later, he was officially proclaimed the winner of the second round of the presidential elections by 55.68% of the votes.
We worked together on building the Nida Tunis party and won the elections hand in hand. Together, we won the 2014 elections. Destiny has now separated us, but I must continue the president's legacy.
The late president was a fierce defender of women's rights. In 2018, he founded the Individual Freedoms and Equality Committee and called openly for equal inheritance between men and women.
I am proud of being Tunisian because I live in a modern country where women's rights are protected by the constitution. This is the vision of our late president.
Tunisia was lucky for having a president and a leader. He paved the way for political stability and equal rights between all citizens. Our late president has marked the modern history of Tunisia.
Beji Qaid Essebsi dedicated himself to the service of the people, the homeland and the state. He will be remembered as one of the great builders of the Tunisian state and the leading figures of independent Tunisia before and after the 2011 popular uprising.
Kings, heads of states, prime ministers and leaders of friendly countries expressed their condolences to the Tunisian government and people following the death of President Beji Qaid Essebsi. They highlighted President Qaid Essebsi's historic contribution to Tunisia's progress and stability. Adin Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Now, according to the latest report by the UN food body, the FAO, hunger figures around the world are worrying, as about 820 million people are going hungry. Tunisian experts say that about 500,000 Tunisians are unable to provide for their basic food needs. Well, now the country aims to reduce losses and wastage throughout food value chains.
Tunisian authorities have launched the national project entitled Reducing Food Loss and Waste and Developing Value Chains for Food Security.
2 charters to combat food waste and reduce losses and waste in the milk value chain and byproducts were signed. It is unacceptable to tolerate food loss and waste while some people are hungry.
The first charter to reduce food waste had been signed by 18 organizations, associations of civil society and professional structures, the Tunisian Hotel Federation, the National Institute of Consumption and the National Federation of Food Industries.
The state and civil society will ensure continuous monitoring of the real food value of waste in Tunisia by conducting studies and research in this field and proposing solutions to combat this phenomenon.
According to the National Institute of Consumption, the food waste of Tunisian families reached 17 dinars, about $6 per month in 2016, or 5% of food expenses, while at the same time 600,000 Tunisians suffer from malnutrition, which represents 4.9% of the population.
The data is alarming. The Charter will include common commitments and objectives to collect new data on food waste and identify areas of intervention, in addition to the development of education programs for responsible consumption in the educational and academic environment.
Authorities assert that reported wastage also affects 16% for bread, 10% for grain products, 6% for vegetables, and 23% for milk and byproducts.
The National Institute of Consumption emphasized the need to reduce food waste, which has a very strong impact on the economy and the environment. Experts pointed out that about 1.3 billion tons of food is lost or wasted every year in the world, which accounts for 1/3 of all food produced for human consumption. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Well, time now for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. The Egyptian parliament removes restrictions on NGOs to ease operations. And over 2.6 billion seedlings planted across Ethiopia to shore up lost forest resources.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
To Egypt now, where many non-governmental organizations operating in the country shut down in recent years due to lack of funding. The government launched a crackdown on organizations it suspected of using that funding to destabilize the nation following the 2011 uprising. This month, however, Parliament has passed a law that removes many of those restrictions previously imposed on NGOs. Here's Adel El-Mahroui with more.
Following the 2011 January uprising, the Egyptian government has accused several international organizations of using foreign funds to destabilize the country. Driven by security concerns, Cairo has launched a massive crackdown on NGOs. In the 2017 amendment of the law regulating NGOs' operation in Egypt, the government imposed prison time and has only allowed NGOs funding under very strict regulations.
The previous law terminated the civil work in Egypt, not just in the fields of rights, but in the charitable aspect as well, which is much needed here in Egypt. We need to see the government deal with us with trust, not with suspicions or presumptions of conspiracies.
When we issued the 2017 law, it was designed to maintain national interests, which were essential at the time. When we amended it in 2019, we realized that these threats have been eliminated. We do not design our laws to please international entities. I'm therefore very optimistic. The new change will have a positive effect on NGOs' work in Egypt.
This month, and under directives of the President, Parliament has finally passed an amended law for NGOs' operation. The new law abolishes jail sentences for civil workers and simplifies procedures to establish non-governmental organizations.
We had to re-establish that mistrust between the state and the international community. We worked to strike a balance to give freedom to NGOs, give the government the power to supervise and inspect.
The government still has the right to inspect NGOs' operation, monitor foreign funding, and restrict organizations to refrain from intervening in political affairs or issues of national security or public morality. The law threatens violators with financial penalties that could go up to $60,000. It's what has made some critics still oppose the new legislation.
We must support NGOs to work. They cannot be restricted to hold activities once they've become licensed to work. They don't need to face massive bureaucracy. Restrictions must be with precise guidelines so that NGOs will not intervene with national threats or internal affairs. We must realize that we are working together instead of suspecting that NGOs are here to create chaos. No, they are here to help, to support the Egyptian state.
Egypt's Ministry of Social Solidarity would not be allowed to dissolve an organization without a judicial verdict. When approved by the President, all NGOs will have 1 year to legalize their stances. The Egyptian parliament is confident that the amendments it has introduced to the legislations governing the work of NGOs in Egypt gives the government the security guarantees it has been looking for while making NGOs operate freely once again in the country. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
More than 2.6 billion seedlings have been planted across Ethiopia over the past 3 months. The East African country is shoring up the momentum to regain its lost forest resources. Now, according to the Ethiopian Ministry of Agriculture, the nationwide project aspires to see the plantation of 4 billion seedlings during the second half of the year. More than 60% of the target has already been met. The planting project was officially kicked off by the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed on the 26th of May.
I have understood this initiative very positively. This is because it not only improves our environment but also bonds us together. We appreciate the Prime Minister's works and leadership. We are following the good example. We will be happy to find more ventures which can bring us all together for the same national cause.
There is no doubt the greenery benefits the country, but what we have to observe as a principle is to properly follow when there is good leadership. Green Ethiopia is our Ethiopia, and that is one side of working for a country. I came here with my friends. We will continue planting seedlings until the target is achieved.
And turning to some international news now, the Hong Kong government has condemned violent protests in Yonglong on Saturday. Several policemen were injured in clashes with protesters and nearly a dozen people were arrested. On Friday, the protesters attacked the elderly during their sit-in at the Hong Kong International Airport. Local authorities have condemned the violence. Yu Yang has the story.
Another round of violence broke out in Hong Kong as demonstrators gathered in Yunlong area Saturday, destroying public facilities and clashing with the local police. On Friday, the Hong Kong police rejected their protest application to prevent predictable violence in Yunlong. Despite police warnings, demonstrators took to the streets, built barricades and removed fences from the road. Some rioters threw rocks and bottles containing corrosive liquid at the police. Local newspaper Ta Kung Po reported some protesters even had guns. During the confrontation, 4 policemen were injured and 11 people were arrested. Hong Kong police said people arrested are between the ages of 18 and 68. They are accused of illegal gathering, holding aggressive weapons and attacking the police. In response, the police had to take proper measures, including using tear gas to prevent further violence.
We had to control the situation in a very short time, so we didn't have time to inform the subway staff. The protesters were very violent, and we had to prevent the situation from deteriorating. The violence has influenced people's lives.
Hong Kong authorities have condemned the violence, saying the protest in Yunlong was illegal. The government has taken measures to restore public transport and protect social security. The police have also said they will keep a close eye on the rioters. Yunlong was not the only place witnessing disturbance. On Friday night, demonstrators dressing in black gathered at Hong Kong International Airport and filled the entire arrivals hall. A video clip showed an elderly passenger surrounded by protesters. One of them shouted at the man, while others posted a yellow slogan on his back. They chased him and pushed him into a wall. Then they cornered him and trampled on his suitcase. They didn't stop until the police arrived. China's Central Television and the People's Daily have both commented on the incident, saying such acts threaten people's safety, as well as social order and security. With Hanlin, this is Yu Yang for CGTN.
Now, earlier this month, protesters stormed the Hong Kong Legislative Building and tied a British colonial-era flag to the podium. Beijing has repeatedly condemned any foreign interference in China's internal affairs. Earlier, we spoke to Wang Kong, a reporter from the Global Times newspaper, who has been closely following Hong Kong's recent riots.
I think it is pretty clear for anyone who watches the situation in Hong Kong that this situation, without the backing of certain elements in Hong Kong collaborating with foreign power, especially Western power, including the US, the UK, the situation will not be as bad as it is now. So I think for that, we have to point out what they are. And what they are they're asking for foreign influence to meddling in Hong Kong affairs, meddling in China's internal affairs. So I think it is pretty straightforward. We got to call them who they are. They are traitors. Who would, ask for foreign power to come and meddling in your own affair? So I think it's we got to point that out. And because if we let that unchecked, let that go without a check, then it will become even more dangerous. We have seen foreign officials from the US, from the UK, from the European Parliament who have constantly ignored international norms and flagrantly interfered with China's internal affairs. I think some of our friends in the West, they seem to having a hard time to understand that Hong Kong, no matter the system, no matter, it is a part of China, and it is China's internal affairs. They cannot just point fingers at any time they want, and without any evidence, with manufacturing, concerns and accusations. So I think we have to point that out very clearly. Otherwise, if we let this go, then it will become very, very dangerous for Hong Kong.
Let's turn now to the development of 5G and how the transformative new technology will reshape people's lives. Let's take a look at what to expect from a 5G future.
5G does not sound unfamiliar these days. It pops up at more and more conferences, and 5G smartphones are already available on the market. But do you really know what the new technology holds in store for us? 5G, or the fifth generation of wireless communication, might bring along a future beyond your imagination. First and foremost, faster speed. 10 times faster than the current 4G network. 5G means significantly higher download and upload speed at your fingertips.
Let me give you an example. If it takes 4G 10 seconds to download a high-quality video, then with 5G, it's no more than 1 second. User experience will be greatly enhanced.
But 5G can be more life-changing than that. It not only brings faster connection with your phone, but can be extended to a wide array of areas, upgrading existing services and unleashing new ones. Its fast speed, low potency, and high reliability make it suitable for a lot more scenarios compared with 4G.
With the integration of 5G into fields such as electronics, energy, transportation, and biology, it will unleash more potential in technology development and innovation.
One field to be reshaped is self-driving cars. 5G will make possible almost real-time communication between vehicles. Car accidents could be prevented and traffic jams be reduced. Also, healthcare will be revolutionized. Remote surgeries could be performed from the other side of the world via robotics controlled with 5G. Entertainment methods will be changed as well. Empowered by 5G, VR lens and augmented reality will provide more immersive and interactive experiences for users. It may bring even more transformations than what we can imagine at the moment. The new generation technology is coming, and along with it, much to be anticipated. Michael with Dong Xingran for CGTN.
Let's take a short break. Your business news up next. Coming up, Chinese experts assist Tunisia to set up a grid-scale solar power plant. And power shortages take their toll on Zimbabweans as the drought bites.
Nigeria is my home. 160 million vibrant, ambitious individuals constantly seeking the perfect self-expression. It is these people who inspired me to be that person that is seen, to be a voice that is heard, and ultimately to be the anchor that I am. I have to tap in, tune in, and turn on the very best qualities within me to deliver the news. I'm Richard Nta, an anchor for CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Chinese experts are in the south of Tunisia to provide technical support in setting up a grid-scale solar power plant in the country. Tunisia has enormous untapped solar power potential and aims to develop at least 835 megawatts of solar power by 2030. With the details, here's CGTN's Adnan Chouachi.
A memorandum of understanding was signed between Tunisian authorities and Chinese companies specialized in renewable energy, with a view to making the most of their expertise in matters of solar energy.
Strengthening cooperation with Chinese enterprises is one of the objectives of Tunisian ministries and companies. There are many opportunities in the renewable energy sector. It is a win-win partnership between Tunisia and China.
Experts in renewable energies noted that China is a renewable energy superpower and that Tunisia can benefit from Chinese expertise in this domain.
Solar energy is available in Tunisia. Photovoltaic panels can be used to produce megawatts of electricity. Chinese companies have full mastery of the technology and the produced energy.
Many Tunisian companies are specialized in the distribution of photovoltaic solar panels. Professionals import their equipment and products from China.
We're importing our products from China. The Chinese market is very competitive in terms of quality, technology, and price.
The Minister of Energy stressed that the development of renewable energy code aims to create a regulatory body for the electricity and gas sectors to oversee the coexistence of private renewable energy developers, independent electricity producers, and self-producers.
Tunisia's Economic Cities Fax is hosting regional symposium on the solar photovoltaic energy sector. Over 60 institutions and companies operating in the field of renewable energies will discuss ways of strengthening cooperation with local and international partners, especially Chinese companies. Adnan Chouachi, CGTN, Tunis.
Maritime experts are meeting in the Ghanaian capital to deepen partnerships in fighting crime at sea. This comes after a number of incidents of piracy, armed robbery and illegal fishing in the Gulf of Guinea. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
This is the first international maritime and exhibition conference to be held in Ghana. Ghana says it's crucial to discuss a range of threats to countries along the African coast and those inland.
Indeed, thefts, including illegal oil bunkering, kidnap for ransom, illegal fishing, drug trafficking are common across our oceans. These transnational crimes do not only threaten national and regional peace and stability, they also come at great cost to the economies of both littoral and non-littoral states.
In June, pirates hijacked a Turkish ship on the Nigerian coast. They abandoned the ship off Ghana. Maritime authorities from Africa gathered at this conference say regional cooperation is key to boost capacities of the naval force. They also believe pooling resources and coordinating maritime responses could help fight the threats of insecurity at sea. Experts say funding must be channeled into modern equipment to detect and prevent crime at sea even before it occurs.
There's got to be deterrence. People have to answer for their crimes. And once a few of these cases are taken and dealt with in the courts, it has to be dealt with ethically and legally. But if somebody's guilty of a crime, they should answer for it, either through fines or they're going to have to do some time in incarceration.
West African countries, including Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Ghana, have signed a memorandum of understanding here. It will see them sharing skills, building naval capacity, and running joint regional maritime patrols. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Now, rural to urban migration is a dream for many, with those looking for greener pastures usually opting for urban centers. But that's not the case for many in Zimbabwe's urban cities. Power cuts and water shortages, coupled with the ripple effects of its failing economy, continue to challenge the southern African country, as CGTN's Thuli Shabalala now reports.
For many in rural areas, the dream is to move to the city for a better and easier life. But now, those basic necessities are a thing of the past in Zimbabwe.
When we lived here in Harare, everything was bright, but now the lack of power is making life difficult for us. I am not young anymore. My children take care of me by usually sending me food in bulk. However, now it's all rotting in the refrigerator.
For many here in Harare, finding power to cook basic meals or even water to clean has become a challenge. At the same time, health hazards like cholera and typhoid are plaguing the commercial capital. Continuous power outages have left many here helpless as they battle to access candles and firewood in the urban city.
I have grandchildren that need to eat. How do I cook for them when the electricity only comes after midnight? Should I then be waking up at 2 a.m. to cook for my grandchildren and make sure they have everything they need? I cannot get firewood in town. Where will I find trees to chop?
As resources disappear in urban cities, many Zimbabweans are opting to return to rural areas. The reason being, they'll source their water at the nearby stream and firewood from surrounding communes, making life a lot easier. Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
With temperatures hitting record highs in Europe this week and the global need to invest in clean, green energy sources, one would think the coal industry is well and truly dead. However, South Africa's coal sector disagrees, and as CGTN's Angelo Coppola explains, the country's singular reliance on coal to generate power for Africa's most industrialized economy is providing a lifeline to coal miners.
The biggest user of coal for electricity generation in South Africa is the government-owned Eskom. And while several of its mines are nearing the end of life, there's still a huge demand for coal, some 1.3 billion tons of it.
Of that 1.3 billion tons, between now and 2030, that shortfall is about 470 million tons. The balance of it is, needs to flow, between 2030 and 2050. Basically, that's the time. The biggest volume is Kusile, because we built Kusile without, a tight colliery. Then followed by Majuba, because Majuba doesn't also have, a tight colliery.
Coal miners have had two markets with a commonly held belief that the export coal market was the bigger income generator. That's until recently.
The prices of exports are not as brilliant as it used to be, but the prices in the local market are much better and much higher. So I suspect that in the future we're going to tend more and more to sell more local coal than exports. Our exports are going to decrease, our inland sales are going to increase.
Eskom is also coming to the party in terms of meeting demand, having not invested in their mine expansion programs for more than a decade.
So we are investing. The board has made a decision, and we will be starting, at Matla, to sink new shafts, a crew will follow, and, the list will go on. I think in the next 4 or 5 years, there's about, 10 billion rands of capital that needs to flow to recapitalize this mine so that they can go back to their production, a capacity, which will benefit, the customer.
South Africa has enough coal reserves to satisfy this demand and then some.
Because of the logistics component, if you look at Botswana or Zimbabwe, it's too far, and South Africa has got enough coal in Mpumalanga and Waterberg. So first depleting the coal in Mpumalanga and then moving to Waterberg. Then when all these coal is depleted, which is about 31 billion tons, then one can look at Botswana and Zimbabwe.
Botswana is attractive nonetheless. This as the country aims to be power and energy independent, and it offers fiscal incentives.
Historically, Botswana has got one of the largest resource bases in terms of coal on the continent. And for our company, apart from them being fairly low cost and fairly large in size, which is important for big projects, whether it's power generation or petrochemicals and or long-term supply contracts, Botswana is also a great destination as a country.
Contrary to popular belief, the coal industry in South Africa is alive and well, and there's lots of opportunity. There's also that carbon tax that's waiting for them. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, that is where we leave your business news, but here's a look at what's still ahead on Africa Live. Coming up, an e-health startup rolls out a rapid malaria testing service in Nigeria.
Africa, the most iconic wildlife destination in the world. Its unique ecosystems were formed over countless eons. Many people can only dream of visiting this natural paradise. But now, for the first time ever, CGTN Wild Wonderland live show is bringing Africa to you through all of our online platforms. 14 episodes from July 22nd to 28th take you to adventure through the Great Plains of Kenya's Masai Mara, the Serengeti in Tanzania, and the Greater Kruger Park in South Africa. Welcome aboard the wildest ride of a lifetime. This is Wild Wonderland live show, only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
A health tech startup in Nigeria has come up with an innovative way to help people access malaria treatment. Wella Health automates services for community pharmacies so that treatment is easy, fast and affordable. It's also created health insurance specifically designed to help Nigerians fight malaria. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmus with more.
John suspects he has malaria and has come to this pharmaceutical store in his community to get tested and receive treatment. He is one of the subscribers on the Wella Health Tech platform. And this pharmacy is also signed up to the Wella Health Malaria Initiative as well. The pharmacist in charge takes John in for a quick and simple test for malaria. The test confirms John indeed has the disease and has to be treated. The pharmacist puts on his computer, opens the Wella Health software where he enters John's details and the drugs to be administered, and before long, John is on his way. It's a simple way the Wella Health Initiative works and has been a great lifesaver against malaria, a very common disease in Nigeria, which is estimated to kill over 200,000 annually.
Two things cause these deaths of over 200,000 Nigerians. First one is the affordability of malaria care and treatment. The second one is the accessibility of that treatment. So we now came up with an idea of to make this healthcare accessible and affordable for Nigerians. And then the only way people can get affordable healthcare services is by insurance. So with just 425 naira every month, you'll be able to have access to malaria care and good quality service in any part of Nigeria, anywhere you are. In Nigeria, you'll be able to have affordable and accessible healthcare service. How it happens is that we send patients to the pharmacy. Even before the patient gets to the pharmacy gets the number and the details of the patients coming in. So they assess them, they test them and give them medication. And Wella Health pays the pharmacy instantly.
Before now, patients will always go to a pharmacy and make a complaint. So whether or not malaria parasite is confirmed, they get medications and they go home and take them. This is not totally right. So with this, rational use of drugs has been ensured because we are always going to do testing for this patient to confirm if they have malaria parasite or not before treatment is instituted.
It has been quite helpful in our ramification concerning health because it's cost effective. It reduces the amount of cost in acquiring drug to treat malaria.
Like John, hundreds have now signed up for the initiative, and over 1,000 pharmaceutical stores across Nigeria have also signed up as well.
When you sign up, we reach out to you to confirm your subscription. And when you have malaria, or you feel like you're feeling sick or you have malaria, you reach out to us either by call, chat, or by text. And then we send you to a pharmacy very close to wherever you are in Nigeria, where you'll be tested and be given medication based on the outcome of the test.
Other than the 425 naira malaria monthly insurance plan, which is about $1.2, Wella Health has other higher plans, depending on the pass of the patient.
Our target is to reach 2 million Nigerians by the end of 2020. And then we will need all the help we can get. Organizations can come on board. Donor organizations can, come on board, fund this platform for us to be able to scale across to every part of Nigeria.
The government has an ambitious plan to eliminate malaria in the country by next year. While that plan seems unrealistic, initiatives like Wella Health are helping to make a big difference in Nigeria's fight against the malaria disease. Deji Badmo, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Well, staying with health issues, let's go to South Africa now, where the Healthcare Funders of Southern Africa conference is currently underway in Cape Town. The conference aims to highlight a number of key issues, including the implementation of universal healthcare. South Africa aims to broaden its network of quality health coverage to include millions who rely on the public health system. Over 1,000 delegates are attending this year's event, including medical practitioners, policymakers and healthcare funders seeking to find ways of navigating new healthcare reforms. CGTN's Travis Andrews has this report.
South Africa's healthcare sector is facing serious challenges on many fronts, including the high cost of private healthcare, as well as the pressures facing the country's public health system. That's a broad consensus among some delegates attending this year's Board of Healthcare Funders Conference, where dealing with the country's burden of diseases also remains a pressing issue.
We have, over the last 20 years, seen a shift, maybe more from infectious diseases to non-communicable diseases. And that's an area that we as an industry have started to look at in terms of changing our approach, making sure that we form the necessary partnerships to be able to fight this scourge.
Public health is a global issue. 47 African countries, which are represented by the World Health Organization, lose more than $2.4 trillion in costs to lost productivity to poor health alone. South Africa is not immune to that, which is why it, as a signatory of the UN Compact to implement universal healthcare by 2030, will push ahead with its obligations to provide quality healthcare to the masses.
If you look at a country like South Africa, given our past, it's fundamentally defined by inequality. And that inequality plays out in a number of areas in terms of land, education, and then specifically healthcare. And I think if we want to build a successful winning country, we need to address these inequalities, including in health.
Costs have also escalated dramatically in the private space, and the Health Market Inquiry is looking at what factors have led to that increase. But technology is also playing an important role in bringing down the clinical costs to a great degree. Innovation in medicine is certainly one issue that could assist South Africa's aims of providing quality healthcare to all. And China is certainly one country that provides the best case study.
I think AstraZeneca is quite good in many disease areas in helping Chinese patients. So when these solutions are more matured and well established to help Chinese patients, so we're also thinking if it can also help patients outside China and also replicate a successful solution also in this part of the world.
But there are many ways that the role players are finding congruence on these matters. And healthcare funders are also making a concerted effort to rein in the costs many are forking out to try and keep healthy. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
Your sports news coming up after the break. In your sports, Ghanaian weightlifters set their focus on the 2020 Olympic Games.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, for every step of the way. Match Point, only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
We start with floorball, where Kenya's men and women's teams have started early preparations for the Floorball Africa Cup of Nations to be hosted in the country's capital, Nairobi. Kenya missed out on the inaugural event last year in Cote d'Ivoire, but that seems to be the least of their worries as they intensify their training. CGTN's Mohammed Abubakar has more.
The Kenyan floorball teams have no proper training facilities, but that has not deterred them from working towards their dream of being kings and queens of African floorball.
Mostly the challenges that players have, one is lack of good fields to play, because this is an indoor game. So when you don't have indoor arenas to train, play our leagues, we play on outside fields, mostly parkings like this one. So it becomes a challenge for players to dribble the ball, passing the ball. There's also equipment. It's a challenge. They're expensive, shipping them, because we don't have locally made equipment as per now, so we do ship them. So that becomes a challenge.
Basically, it's a challenge, but I believe with the coaches we have, the trainings we are doing, I believe we shall be able to overcome all challenges and be the winners.
The teams are made up of mostly students, and with all the experience playing in the local league, they are yet to play an international match. But the lack of international experience seems to be the last thing on Coach Maina's mind.
So not going for the first championship does not give me any worry. Yeah, I believe in them. They've played for long, and I know the tactics to give them, also with the other coaches, and we are good to go.
However, with all the challenges, the Kenyan Floorball Federation has vowed to see the sport raise the ranks and claim its position amongst the elite sports in the continent.
At the moment, if you talk about football, everyone knows football. If you talk about hockey, the normal hockey, everyone knows basketball. So in 5 years' time, we want every Kenyan, and not just Kenyan, we want every African as well to be aware that there is floorball and to start playing the sport.
Kenya is set to host the second African Floorball Championship in September. And with 9 teams having already confirmed attendance, this might just be the way to help popularize the sport. Mohammed Abubakar, CGTN.
Weightlifters in Ghana are eager to represent their country at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. But first, they have to participate and perform well in at least 6 international championships. The team has been busy training, but they are in need of more financial support, as CGTN's Nabil Ahmad Rufai now reports.
Ghanaian weightlifting champion Christian Amwa prepares to lift 190 kilograms, and success in Egypt is his next target.
Olympic qualifiers, so Egypt.
We are training hard for the Olympic qualifiers in Egypt. So far, we are seeing improvement in our training session, and I think things will go well.
I want to get to the highest level in weightlifting. I want to be part of the World Championship, World Olympic Games also.
But as they prepare for the competitions, a bigger hurdle is the lack of funds.
Weightlifting's qualification for the games is a bit capital intensive. You should compete in a minimum of 6 international championships. And you know, all those things involves money. So we are hoping to raise the needed funds for them to at least get to these 6 competitions.
The sport solely lies on funds from government. Managers hope to secure corporate sponsorship to complement it, but has been a challenge for many years. In spite of limited funds to support the sport, Christian Amwa is confident of a spot in the Olympics next year. Having participated in the Rio Olympics in 2016 without winning any medal, he says the experience will guide him to perform better when he makes it to Tokyo. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
In Senegal, women's rugby is one of the least known sports, but the Senegalese Rugby Federation is fighting to give the women's game a boost. As the country prepares to host the 2022 Youth Olympics, the teams are working hard to ensure they win the title on home soil. CGTN's Chaumgona reports.
One of the main goals of the Senegalese Rugby Federation is to create awareness about women's rugby. Created in 2010, the Federation has set up a number of training schools spread across the country. These schools have become a hub for many young girls engaging in the sport.
At first it was a challenge because it is complicated to introduce rugby into a Muslim country. Finally, we turned to the youth categories from 12 to 16 years old. This allowed us to have a lot of followers, especially in the working class neighborhoods. We discovered that outside of school, girls have no social life, and with rugby, they could make new discoveries and meet new people.
Currently, we are working on the categories of the under 16 and under 18 to put them in the right conditions for the 2022 Youth Olympics to be held in Senegal.
I started out as an athlete, but there was once a marathon at Guédiawaye where different teams met. Among the coaches who were present, there was one who coached the rugby team, and she particularly impressed me. I approached her and she invited me regularly to training sessions.
Women's rugby in Africa is leading the way in terms of the number of registered players in the world. But gender stereotype remains a concern. In Senegal, players face a lot of stigma.
Technically, we have good training because our coaches are competent and experienced. The only thing we lack right now is the visibility because the media in Senegal are less interested in women's rugby.
Authorities in Senegal are keen to push for the growth of the women's game. They hope to win the 2022 title as Senegal prepares to host the Youth Olympics Championship. Chomrono, CGTN.
On to motorsports now, where Formula One leader Lewis Hamilton has put Mercedes on pole position for their 200th race at the German Grand Prix. Red Bull's Max